wonderful. John's still on vacation. No, I shouldn't talk like that. He's been traveling so much. Yeah, he's been in LA and he's in Atlanta right now. And he's in Dallas. He's had a lot of work right now. Yeah. Well, puts food on the table. Right.
Oh, sorry. That's okay. Yeah.
How's the
Welcome back from vacation. How was it?
Wonderful. A little bit of a space cadet, but I'm here. Brought back to my family.
Of course. Did you like it as much as the other trip or no?
Yeah, it was very different.
Different.
Ma'am,
how are you?
I didn't see you there. It was good. You were still on it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
How are you?
I heard you were in some break. Fine. Well, pleasure to meet you. Looks like her. Oh, good. I needed that. We'll have to look at that. That's not dinner. The other day. Yeah. All right. I think the staff is still overwhelmed with all the sweater.
There we go.
Yeah.
Just say
Very, very just driving in.
I'm an over 6,000.
I walk in there.
Sure do.
So Mike, I brought my, so I just can't stay back.
My watch says 9:30. All right, I'll call this meeting to order. I got 9:30, and this is our regular board meeting, May 23. And if you join me with the Pledge of Allegiance, we'll move along. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Mr. Nortier, do we have any guests this afternoon? No guests, Marshall Brothers. And for approval of the agenda, I'll entertain a motion for the agenda as presented. And, okay, the motion's been made by Mr. Allen, second by Ms. Johnson. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? It approves unanimously. And next item, and before we go on to the consent agenda, Mr. Nortier, you have a comment about
I would like to recommend that, we don't have it on the agenda today, but I'd like to recommend a closed session. We do have some updates to provide in regards to the labor negotiations and non-representative salaries.
all right. Entertain a motion for having a closed session regarding salary review and labor negotiations after this meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, the motion's been made by Mr. Allen, second by Ms. Henderson. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously, and we will have a closed session following this meeting. As always, there will not be any action or decisions made at a closed session. Next item on our agenda is Executive Director's report.
Well, I would make a motion to approve the consent.
Excuse me, I jumped that one, I'm
That's all
sorry.
right, I'm just gonna motion it.
And I will second it.
All right. Ms. Johnson made the motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, and second by Ms. Henderson. Any other discussion about that? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimously. Now we'll go to the executive session.
All right, well, thanks, sir. Really appreciate the support over the last 3 weeks, and be glad to certainly be part of the Allen Transit team. A couple of updates just for the board, for the public. We are working on updating our disadvantaged business enterprise program. That's a program that we'll have in place. We've had one in the past. It's outdated now. It certainly needs to be reviewed, and we have done that work. The initial goal was published to media this last weekend. We also pushed that information out to the various disadvantaged business enterprises in the state of Washington via email for their ordinance. So we'll wait about 30 days for comment or review from those folks. At the end of that, we'll look at presenting that to the board for their approval, and that will be on or before the first of July. So we're on track for that. Next month, we'll begin working on longer-term plans, starting with a strategic review with staff leading to an updated transit development plan in the 2017 budget cycle. So we're well underway in there. Some operational issues just for awareness for both the board and the public. Washington State Department of Transportation began a month-long State Road 20 single-lane closures. We'll start in Crewville. So that work started already. We haven't seen single-lane closures yet, so minimal impact on our route. It will largely impact Route 1 and our riders. So we'll look at providing updates as we get that. We're working operations and dispatch staff, and we're working to monitor that. We need to continue around that construction. Let's go. So again, that'll continue for the next month or so. And we'll provide the update once that's on the 9th of May, we did a walkthrough. Ms. Dromberg accompanied us as well for the Allen Transit state of bid repair contract. At this point, I think we've concluded all the repair work that's going to come with that. So we'll work towards closing that state of repair the contract out with Tiger Construction. We do have one outstanding item, not necessarily related to the facility itself, but we do have Washington Department of Health came in and looked at our water system at the end of April. They gave us a report on the early May. At this point, they found 2 issues that we needed to rectify by the 15th of June. Those 2 issues were documentation of a water softener system, which wasn't originally incorporated into the design and was not provided to the state. So we have an engineer that's developing that documentation for us to provide the Department of Health. Secondly, there was a surface contaminant that was in our water system. The water system tests safe. It is good for it is potable water and good water for use. But we have started flushing that system to clear the contaminant. Neither one of those, I believe, we're going to have any issue with the correct documentation. So more follow up.
Do you know the source of that? Did they identify the source of the contaminant?
We're not sure. We're not sure if it was there from the initial installation, if it's something that came in through the system, through the water softener. They did take a sample of it, so they're going to test it and tell us what it is. But again, it's not a contaminant in the water system itself, and the water is potable. We also started on the 9th of May, worked with Harbor Station. Window replacements were started there. We'll start Kingsman Construction Company has been awarded a contract to do the paint and repair work at the rest of the facility up there. So that'll start in the weeks to come. That was our budget. The contract that was awarded was actually under budget, so everything was Route 412, we had a community meeting over in Camino earlier this month. We had about a dozen folks that attended that meeting as well. In general, very well received. Positive news to the community and restoring that service that will begin on the 20th of June. A couple of comments from the community that were interest. One was certainly interest in the fare or fare equity or perception of fare and equity, and that there's one route that Allen Transit now charges a fare on, whereas the others do not. So we certainly walked our way through that, and I think at the end of the discussion, members of the public understood why the rationale for the route was, and certainly in particular the grant that required that fare recovery. So I was comfortable that we got an understanding on that one. The other one that was a request really was monthly passes. This revolved largely around municipalities and employers who reimburse employees for taking transit. They need some kind of receipt system or monthly pass to do that. So we're going to look at that. We're going to present some options, I think, on the 13th of June in our workshop for consideration. And take that service off and look at what our people need something to do, a receipt system or monthly pass.
Would that include a pre-printed receipt, the driver initials it and dates it?
That's one of the options we're going to look at. Yeah, similar to almost like taxi cab services. So we're going to look at a number of options that make sense for us. And we're also going to compare it to other services offered by transit agencies and as far as fare structure, things like that. So we're going to look at what makes sense and then present it before So we're also modifying the facility over there and finalizing procedures for the for command. Training for staff will be held on the 4th of June, so we can again kick that service off on the 20th of June. We are looking to hold a ribbon cutting ceremony to kind of start that service off. So some more to follow on those. We've also met with several mayors already, mayors from Cookville and Oak Harbor. Plan to do the same with a number of other mayors and elected in both at the county, community, and state and federal level. Kind of get their interests in issues with transit. And that'll help us as we move forward with our strategic planning to make sure we understand what the community interests are, where we line our priorities, and how we develop the transit development plan as we move forward to the future. A couple other projects just of interest. State Road 20 realignment is about to start here. Essentially the curve right outside of our facility here. As we talk about the Parker Road realignment, Allen Transit certainly got real estate and connection interest. Part of the State of Good Repair grant included a secondary access, which right now comes out the back of our facility and stops prior to connection there. So part of this work with Washington State Department of Transportation, Our Lady, and the county will need to complete that connector so that we have a secondary access that comes out the back of our facility. And that will be part of the Parker Road realignment project. So that's moving forward. We expect some results back from the engineer here in the next couple of weeks, potentially leading towards bids in the next couple of months to get that work done.
Will that be an emergency exit, or will it be a primary, secondary?
It would be a secondary access. It would be a two-way exit, both egress and egress. In particular, what we're looking for is our southbound vehicles that need to be able to exit and return to that route.
And I have one other question about that too. Will that be a secured gate that
Yes.
will be driver activated?
It's very similar to our other gate right here. It is an automated gate. Right now, we need to, the gate is currently already there. We just need to do some repairs and get operational.
And that's cost that will be borne by the transit for the gate operation.
Not that it's a repair. We essentially salvaged or cannibalized parts of that for our operational gate today. So we'll have to repair that gate as part of the project. Second issue, which is a little longer term, is Sheriff's Corner roundabout. There's actually two roundabouts that will go up at the Sheriff's Corner. Technically outside of our area, but it impacts the 411 Whiskey route. So that route will go through a roundabout. There'll be two roundabouts. One at the Gibraltar Miller, which is the intersection south of Sheriff's Corner, and also at the Sheriff's Corner. Working with the SCAT Transit and of course Washington State Department of Transportation. That project will probably go out for bid next fall. Construction in 2018, potentially in 2019. So some long-term impacts. The impacts for us are certainly the bus stops that we have there, essentially Sheriff's Corner and access to Merchant Point. The roundabout itself won't be an issue. It's going to be a large diameter roundabout to handle heavy transportation. So not concerned there. We just want to make sure that our activities address the bus stops and access to Merchant Point. That's all. And that's all I have for updates.
Thank you very much. And appreciate when you put those updates like that out for us electronically. It's a good heads up. We really appreciate it. And I have a question for Harbor Station. You said that it was under the estimate or our budget. What was the amount of the contract and how much under budget was it?
So I'll give you some approximations. I don't have the numbers exactly in front of me. I want to say that the number for the contract that was awarded was around just a little under $18,000. I believe the budget for that was around $24,000.
Thank you very much. And any other questions for Mr. Nortier? So how about the financial report?
Yeah. First item that I talked about is just monthly ridership. So our ridership is 74,722, which is slightly down from the previous month, but about 16% decrease from April of 2015. So we're experiencing a little lower ridership, which I think is somewhat linked to the price of fuel. If you look at it from a wider perspective, we can see where we are. Our ridership is similar perhaps to what we maybe saw 10 years ago. Some of it is due to the change in the cost of fuel and also the impact of our rate cuts in 2014, which you can see it drove our ridership down between July and September 2014. Price of fuel continues to stay low, although it's bumped up a little bit. We're at a historical time where our cost of fuel is decreased significantly. Last year, of course, we saved like $500,000 on the cost of fuel. But we're paying right now just under $40,000 for the month. Our cost per gallon is now starting to rebound a little bit. We're at almost $2 per gallon for unleaded fuel. Diesel, for some reason, is significantly less. I guess that's not a guarantee, but historically, diesel's a little or less than unleaded fuel. So we can see how that's jumping around over time. We're still at a really low period, but it's like price of fuel's going up a little bit. And you've seen this graph before, the relationship between ridership and fuel. I like to track it because I think it tells a really interesting story. And we can see the price of fuel's gone up, and our ridership is also kind of following lockstep with it. Sales tax has been really good for us in the first 4 months. We're about 11% ahead of budget for those 4 months, or about $280,000 surplus in those first 4 months. So in April, we experienced a cash surplus, about $280,000, partially from grant reimbursements and strong sales tax numbers. And this is how the effect it had on our cash numbers. You can see we're just a little over $3.4 million as of the end of April. And due again, fuel prices, contract reimbursements, and strong sales tax lifted us about $284,000 in cash for the month. And you can see it's broken out into the different various funds, but on the whole, we continue on the progress that we're making to increase our cash balances and fund balances. And that's it. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the board?
On the on the ridership slide, when we had those peak time periods, did that include Saturdays, or is that just Monday through Friday, compared Monday through Friday?
That's a good point. Before we made the cuts, that included Saturday service, right? So when we made those cuts, we not only cut routes, we cut Saturday service as well.
Days of the weekend, obviously.
Would it be difficult to see in those years how much that ridership was weekend?
I think we might be able to find that. I'll have to ask operations. I think we'll be able to get that data.
I'm interested, but not if it's an event.
Okay.
Is that it? Any other? I have a question for you regarding fuel. Do we have a long-term contract with that fuel provider where we stabilize those prices per gallon? Or are we going month to month?
We buy through the state contract, through a local supplier. But actually, we have a number of suppliers of fuel. But our major supplier is APP here at the main facility. And we are charged the state contract prices for that fuel. And then if we're buying for our Camino, we buy through the county, Island County, at the prices that they set. But I'm not aware of any locked-in long-term contracts that would lock in our pricing.
Well, if the state is doing it, aren't they getting a commitment for a month or 3 months or some time period?
I would have to investigate that. I think they're getting commitment for price, at a set price, but I don't know what time frame.
And like Ms. Johnson's quotes, if it's an event to get that information, it's not all that important, but I would be interested to know,
Yeah.
to see how stable our prices are. I think it's helpful for
Generally, there's
forecasting.
flux on that, and volatility, big agencies will, there's a commodity called fuel hedge.
Yeah.
That the bigger agencies do, sometimes it, basically, you bet against the
market, yeah.
So it's kind of a reverse insurance sort of thing, but generally, you're not gonna ever find locked-in prices too far on the horizon just because of volatility of the market.
And the state is not considered a big enough agency.
That sort of thing. I don't know that if they purchase hedge sorts of things. I know community transit, we did it for a couple of years when that was a big volatile issue for budgeting purposes. And we went out and did it. It's been so low last 2 years they haven't done it. I think Pierce and Vancouver have done it too.
Any other questions, comments here for staff? And if not, we're going to move along to item number 1, discussion with possible action updating the specialized paratransit service.
So this is a request from the board for essentially, initially for a workshop. Our next scheduled workshop was not until the 13th of June, so I did not want to push it out to the 13th of June. Largely because we have letters that have gone out over the last year that talk about those paratransit riders that were out of bounds, which is greater than 3/4 of a mile from the fixed route, that we would stop providing that service on the 30th of June of 2016. So we have included it in today's. I'll let our paratransit manager, Dee, kind of walk through the brief, and then I've got a couple of comments to provide as well.
So as he mentioned, what we're required to provide for paratransit is up to 3/4 of a mile on either side of a fixed route. Anyone who lives beyond that is considered out of bounds. We are allowed to have those out of bounds riders come in order to receive the paratransit service. The Americans with Disabilities Act is not intended to meet all of the transportation needs of all persons with disabilities all of the time. As such, the level of service provided is required to be comparable to that of the fixed route. ADA guidelines should be applied fairly and consistently to all passengers. Island Transit historically has tried to provide out-of-bounds service on a time and space availability with no guarantee. Last spring, you guys asked us to give proposals for cost-saving ideas for the paratransit department, and the out-of-bounds service was one of those, to discontinue that. You did vote to discontinue the out-of-bounds service to new applicants, and did provide that deadline of June 30th, 2016 for the existing riders to make other arrangements. So who are our out-of-bounds riders? We have 33 riders certified to that May 15th decision who have been eligible for out-of-bounds service. 17 of those riders did not schedule trips in 2015. Of those 33 riders, 1 passenger is a dialysis patient, 2 passengers utilize a manual wheelchair, 3 passengers utilize a powered wheelchair, and the remaining passengers are ambulatory. So what did we provide out of bounds in 2015? 906 trips for a total out of bounds mileage of just over 8,800. And it should be noted that 88% of those miles are for 3 riders only. The cost per mile for paratransit is $7.50 for a total out of bounds cost for 2015 of just over $66,000. So the challenges we find with out of bounds trips, first off, is that our inbound trips are ever increasing. Those are trips that we are required to provide. The dispatcher's time taking trip requests that we cannot accommodate. In 2015, we took 250 trips that we could not schedule. The out-of-bounds cancellations create longer downtimes for operators, but also negatively affect other riders' pickup and drop-off times. No-shows generate unnecessary miles, and other riders are subjected to longer trips while the bus goes out of bounds. So I take about 2 calls a month from folks who are out of bounds, and I have to explain to them why we can't go to their home for service. It's not a fun conversation to have. They're understandably disappointed. Most people understand once I go over the guidelines why it is that way. There are some who don't get it, and their first comment is, so I'm paying taxes for a service that I'm not receiving. Those are the calls that don't always end well. Now picture that call that has not ended well, coming back and the bus just went down the road to pick up someone else who is still inbounds or getting service that this person's been told that they can't. So what are the alternatives for these passengers? Well, for medical appointments, they can try calling the Senior Service Volunteer Ride Program. Medicaid recipients may be eligible for transportation to medical appointments. DSHS has an aged, blind, or disabled cash assistance program. The maximum monthly grant is $197 if they qualify, that can be used for transportation. A family member or a neighbor could drive them inbounds for service. This is not ideal, but at least it commits them to a very small part of the overall trip. We asked other agencies what do they do, and these are the ones we did hear back from. Yakima does not go out of bounds, nor does Ben Franklin Transit. Kitsap does on a very limited basis, depending on their riderships. Everett does provide out of bounds service. Lane Transit currently does go out of bounds, but they may be reconsidering. And it should be noted, of course, all of these agencies do charge a fare for their paratransit service. So what are our options? Well, we can continue to allow those existing riders to book out-of-bounds trips on a time and space availability, or we can follow the ADA guidelines and discontinue out-of-bounds service. Our staff recommendation is to proceed with your prior decision to discontinue the service that exceeds the ADA guidelines of 3/4 of a mile with the end date of June 30th of this year.
So a couple of comments I'll kind of wrap up as well as when we considered the options available for continuing out of bounds service, one of the options that we did consider was, do we grandfather essentially those folks in that we provided service to in the past? And, while that initially seemed appealing, in consultation with council, one of the things we discovered was that probably puts us at a legal disadvantage in that in accordance with Title VI, we have to provide fair treatment, equal treatment to all. So as Dee kind of mentioned, if we were to grandfather those folks in and not accept new applicants, we could very much end up in a position where we would be unfair and unequal treatment to those with the same or similar disabilities. So really, it comes down to the only applicable solution is we either continue service to all out of bounds, which is, it's a fiscal requirement and increasing demand. We're already about 25% of the overall budget for paratransit services. So it's already a challenge that we need to kind of manage and manage smartly. Or we stick with the ADA guidelines of 3/4 mile. I'm not insensitive to the requirements and certainly the needs of those that are outside of that 3/4 miles. I think it is fair to ask them to get to the 3/4 mile, and we're more than willing to help them, certainly within that 3/4 mile. But to continue that out-of-bounds service, I think puts us at either one, we have to accept all, and that's a fiscal challenge that I'm not sure we're going to be able to manage smartly in the future. Or we do it equally and apply it through further model, which is our recommendation.
You mentioned in one of your conversations that one of those customers out of bounds, you told her she couldn't be there anymore. We could pick her up at home and a bus went by the house.
Yeah, if we allow these 33 people to continue to book out-of-bounds trips, they may very well be living next door to someone who I've told you can't get service. We can't go to your home, you're out of bounds. But yet we're going to go to the neighbor's house to pick up them because they're one of the 33.
Oh, okay. So that would stop when we have to be out of bounds.
Right.
But
So-
we go by our house there.
Correct.
Okay. That makes sense.
So I'm just, excuse my voice, curious about the charge that the other transit agencies, the fare they charge. They're, I guess my question is, can we charge people out of bounds if we're not charging fares for other?
Not currently. It kind of goes back to the same Title VI requirement. We've got to have fare. Now, paratransit does allow you to charge up to double the normal fare. Since we have a fare of 0, we can still double that.
Right.
I don't mean to make light of it.
No, I understand. And, you know, I just have a real concern about people. I mean, I certainly understand the difficulties in that.
Why would it?
I'm concerned because I know that senior services, they do run, but they are really struggling because that's mostly volunteer driven and they can't find volunteers, and so it's not really much of an option for people that need it.
Why would it be difficult to charge out of bounds people a fare and not the others who are playing by the end, live inside that 3-quart boundary? Why would that cause any problems if they're, I mean, we're going outside of our way to do that?
Sure.
Why would it be difficult to charge a fare?
It's only difficult in the fact that we don't charge a fare right now. So in order to comply with Title VI, it has to be fair and equal treatment. So for us to charge a fare to those that are paratransit, whether they're inbound or out, would be unfair because we don't charge a fare to people that are inbound or uses the fixed route services.
I see.
Yes, Johnson.
On the alternatives where we talked about Medicaid recipients may be eligible for transportation or DSHS age-blind or disabled cash assistance program, would we be eligible to get any of those contracts to provide that service if they were paying for it? So we aren't subsidizing it with our system, but they're being paid for by another system. But Jackie's saying no.
I don't think we can unless we charge a fare.
I was going to say, we don't charge a fare right now, so for us to go to Medicaid or Medicare and ask them to pay something, we're not charging them all.
Because I did check that out once before, and if we charged all, then we could get a contract with Medicaid and get reimbursed for that, but, yeah. We can't charge Medicaid if we're not charging regular people.
And it still wouldn't justify us doing that allowance.
So Dean, you say you get about 2 new requests a month?
And that's just me. The dispatchers also field calls. When they call in to request an application, one of the first things we always try to do is look them up to give them the heads up, hey, you're out of bounds. So I may address 2, they could address many more that I'm not even aware of. And people will say, don't even send the application, there's nothing you can do for me. If I could get in bounds, I wouldn't need your service at all. And we get it, it's a catch-22, it's not ideal, which is why a lot of people in that 33 aren't even trying to book a trip. Because when we can't guarantee it, and you don't know until the night before whether it's even available, it's hard to make plans based on that.
Do we know the cost estimate of roughly what it would be to just do all out-of-bounds service? I mean, what is that cost? How many?
I don't think we can answer that question. I mean, I can tell you, we could give you an answer based on the known out-of-bound folks, and if we were to provide that service, we could probably come up with that estimate, but the challenge is on the folks that we've already turned away or have already chosen not to do that. I can't answer that question, and it would be certainly greater than the number we would give you, because I just don't know how many folks have already realized that they're out of bounds and have chosen to look at other alternatives and not consider other alternatives.
So we're at about 66,000 right now, is that what that, or was there that number?
That's what we provided last year for going out of bounds.
So maybe double that if we just went all.
If we opened the
everywhere.
door, it would be huge, I can tell you that right now.
And I have a question here for you also. If we had a fare system, a system-wide fare system, would we be able to have a different rate for out of bound?
Yeah, it no longer.
Up to double,
Not so much out of bounds for paratransit in general, you can have up to double.
okay?
But going out of bounds, it no longer is an ADA trip because we're going above and beyond. So that opens the door to allow you to charge pretty much whatever you want for that premium service.
Okay. So this is a discussion that we need to have when we address the fare policies down the road here. It's good information, I appreciate that. There's one item that jumped out at me, and it's kind of a minor thing. The cost for riderships per trip, you have down here at $7.50. We had a publication approximately a year ago, and my recollection is $7.50 was the fixed route fare, about $22 was the paratransit rate, and 16 and some change was for Camino.
Yeah, $7.50, I think we said it was per mile, right?
Yes.
$7.50 per mile?
Correct.
Okay, I missed that part of it. Makes a difference on the unit, doesn't it?
Are most of the out-of-bounds people, is it ongoing or is it temporary service they need?
It's ongoing. Yeah.
So, of these people that have called and requested out-of-bounds service and have been told no, have we any documentation of any dire consequences to the fact that Island Transit did not pick them up?
No.
In other words, they were able to find another way to get where they needed to go.
Yes.
Well,
I mean,
know
it
that.
stands to reason that.
Right, we have not heard from them, so we don't track what they use
Yeah.
as an alternative service.
So you're looking for approval for resolution 19-16, 9-16?
Correct. And it essentially does two things. Reconfirms the decision you made last year, and also we took this opportunity to update our ADA policy, both to reflect the 3/4 mile inbound paratransit service, and then update a number of things that were just need to be updated because of ADA policy changes over time from RCW and FDA.
At this time, I'd entertain a motion to consider resolution 9-16.
I would move to approve resolution 9-16 of the Board of Directors of the Island County Public Transportation Benefit Area Corporation, updating the Island Transit Specialized Paratransit Service Policy effective July 1st, 2016.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion by Ms. Johnson to move to approve resolution 9-16, approved by Mr. Allen. Any further discussion?
You know, I would just like to say that if and when we choose to charge fares, that we need to look at this policy. And maybe be able to access the Medicaid funds and others.
I just want to add that this is a decision that was made by the board a year ago to give 1 year consideration to those who are currently using the program. They've had that year, and I think it's important to really the board stands firm by what we agreed to last year. And that would be this in 230.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the resolution 9-16, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Nortier. Item number 2, presentation of the route match upgrade proposal of STP R-11, award with possible action. Mr. Nortier.
So I know the board was presented, and we had the CEO of Route Match come out previously and present information on Route Match. So this is really kind of a recap of that, kind of captures Island Transit's interest and not necessarily just the kind of sales pitch that we received from Route Match last time. So I'm going to let let Sean Harris, our operations manager, walk through this brief, but in essence, I'll tell you that for us to not do anything, for Island Transit not to do anything with route match, we're going to, over time, continue to retrograde into the past. The system we have is aging in both architecture and capability, so we have route match today. This is an upgrade that comes as part of a grant that we were awarded. It provides a number of improvements in capability that will increase our efficiency and offer some enhancements for the public. So I'll let Sean walk through it, and I'll recap it for you.
All right, so the route match software upgrade. So a little bit of history. We purchased route match in 2007. When we purchased it, we kind of had a paratransit vision at the time, so it was a scheduling software. We realized, that also we could use it for fixed route as well. So in 2007, when we purchased it, we were scheduling about 130 trips, paratransit trips per day. And then in 2010, we implemented the mobile system. So this was an upgrade to what we purchased originally. And that allowed us to see the buses on the fixed route side of things. So we'd be able to see where the buses are on a map from in-house. So in 2015, the average number of trips for paratransit has doubled from that 130. They're doing upwards of 250 to 260 trips a day. We were awarded this grant in 2011, and it was for enhanced dispatch communication systems technology. And we were awarded $202,000 at 86.5%, with Island Transit's match at 13.5% at $31,000. So what is route match? So it's a software that enables dispatchers to schedule, maintain paratransit manifest by utilizing the database that's provided by route match. It monitors fleet movement for para and fixed routes, has instant message capability between dispatch and bus operators. So the dispatchers are able to send messages to the operators of detours and emergencies, things like that. So we're able to communicate outside of the radio. It allows for tracking and reporting of vehicle mileage for para and fixed, and provides mapping and navigation features also for para and fixed. The current route match that we have, if we were not using that today, we would need approximately 2.5 more employees just to manage what route match allows us to do and maintaining the client database. And I'm told, obviously this is on the low end, but I said I would mention that. But that was our calculation at 2.5 employees, full-time employees.
Is that based on what we have right now, or does that include the upgrade?
That does not include the upgrade. That's for what we have right now. If we were to get rid of that, that's what it would take for us to continue doing what we're doing right now. Joe.
I don't understand that.
Okay.
So in other words, the software capabilities that we have today, if we were to go back to pen and paper, we need 2.5 people to do what the computing system and the software matching is doing for us today.
Without what we currently have.
Correct.
How does that justify what we are about to do?
We'll get to that. The only point to that was just say, if we didn't have route match today, we would need approximately 2.5 more employees to do what the system does for us.
It's always patience with me. Same problem every time.
So what this slide shows are the Rangers, which are a piece of equipment we have in the bus that allows us to track where the buses are and allows the operator to see their pieces of work throughout the day on the bus. Versus tablets, which everybody knows the standard tablets these days. And what we wanted to show here was when we first purchased the Rangers, I believe it was in 2010, they were almost $3,000 a unit. In order to repair those, The company's been bought out by another company that's in Canada. It cost us $500 approximately for repair. We've seen some repairs upwards of $1,000. And it takes us 6-8 weeks, sometimes longer, to get those back. And it's because the Rangers are outdated, and we can't get them anymore. We have 2 left, and so once, you know, those break, then we have to make a decision on, you know, are we gonna go with tablets, or what do we do here? I mean, we could definitely purchase some off of someone's shelf. I'm sure they'd be happy to get rid of those, but then again, that leaves us with outdated equipment. And again, as you can see, the cost of the tablets, they cost less for full replacement than the Rangers cost for repair. That's because they're commercially available these days. So what Island Transit looks to get out of this is 3 modules: notification module, route match fix, and the web portal. And I'll kind of get into some of the highlights that we would be getting. All the highlights in blue are new. That's new technology we would be receiving. And actually the 41 tablet conversion and licensing, that actually could be considered with the web portal as the 4th thing, because they're going to replace those outdated Rangers with 41